What's up, Internet? Caleb of Board Time Things here with a very special video. If you're watching this, that means that Robbie of Retroland Reviews has finally completed his 5-year journey of reviewing every episode of Xena Warrior Princess. All 134 episodes, 1 episode per week. Now, Robbie is a friend of the channel and we've collaborated on a couple projects, so I thought it would be fun, in honor of this milestone, to check out every single Xena Warrior Princess video game ever. Let's throw it back to 1999 and start with Xena Warrior Princess, Talisman of Fate for the Nintendo 64. This one's a fighting game set in the world of Xena. Now, my only experience really for fighting games on the Nintendo 64 were Smash Bros. And Killer Instinct, so I didn't really know what to expect. I was surprised to find that it was a fully 3D fighting game. It actually reminded me of playing Soul Edge in the arcade at my local CC's Pizza as a kid.
It should have been me, not him! It's not fair!
But let's talk about the story. Like all good fighting games with a single player component, you have to give all the characters a reason to fight, and I think this one has a pretty decent setup. Let's read this straight from the game manual. Remember those? Xena has fought fiercely to save the stolen Talisman of Fate from Despair, the champion of Dahak. In the midst of heated battle, both have laid their hands on the talisman and claimed control over the destiny of the world. We, the Fates, declare that a contest must decide. Xena has the task of choosing defenders of the world. We have seen them in her mind. The battle for the right to control fate itself will be fought by Earth's greatest heroes and greatest villains, plus Joxer. And the last who remains must then challenge Despair. As far as the gameplay goes, I was pleasantly surprised. The action's pretty fast, the controls are fluid, and landing hits actually feels really good, which is something that a lot of 3D fighters at this time period didn't really feel. It's not the deepest fighting game, but you can tell that the developers were fans of the show, giving characters moves that made sense, throwing in alternative costumes that reference deep cut moments in the TV series, and even making it where Xena can't fight Gabrielle, and instead switching her out with Hope. If you know, you know. It also has a surprisingly robust practice mode that shows all of your controller inputs in real time so you can practice your inputs for special attacks. I did have to look at the manual again to learn specials, but once I did, there was really only one move that I needed. All jokes aside, this game surprised me. It's not the greatest fighting game of all time, but for a TV tie-in on a console that is historically known to not have the greatest selection of fighting games, this one was pretty good. Xena Warrior Princess for the PlayStation 2 was released on December 15th, 2006, and is the most recent Xena game to be published. This game has nearly been forgotten with time, and for good reason. It's not good. Even finding information on the web for this game was difficult, because no one really played it. The story is simple. To get Xena's attention, Ares kidnaps Gabrielle and chains her to a floor in a room that is constantly filling with water. I didn't realize this until near the end of the game, that you're actually on a time crunch because Gabrielle can't actually drown. You can check on her anytime you want to just by accessing it through the pause menu. This entire game can be completed within an hour and a half on your first attempt, and that's a good thing because that means there's less to play. I really didn't want to bash it, but this game just really isn't good. The combat is unresponsive most of the time, the camera is awful, the controls are extremely jank, the platforming is bad, and text pop-ups get in the way constantly and require a button press to get rid of. And that's especially annoying when you're trying to pick up an object and throw at an enemy, because pressing the button to get rid of the message also throws the object you're currently holding. Thankfully, and this is a weird design choice to me, there's really no penalty for dying, so there's really no threat other than Gabrielle drowning. The reason for this in the game is that Ares wants Xena alive, so if you run out of health, you'll either respawn on a checkpoint if you have the Hades heart pickup, or you'll respawn in an open jail cell, which I thought was a glitch at first, but is actually part of the game. So apparently you can just run around the enemies to get where you need to go to eventually confront Ares in quite possibly the most anticlimactic battle in any video game I've ever played. You don't even get a credit roll. If you want to play an action-adventure game featuring an awesome heroine that also came out on the PS2 in 2006, just play Tomb Raider Legend instead. It's a shame that this is how Xena's time has ended in gaming. Maybe one day Xena will return to a role that does her character justice. But in the meantime, let's check out these other games.
So the Spartan says to the Roman, when the chips are down, the buffalo is empty. Get it? The buffalo is empty?
I think you need to work on another ending for that story.
Aw, come on. It wasn't that bad.
And she was right. I'd even say this game's really good. Xena Warrior Princess for the PlayStation 1 was released on October 5th, 1999. I'll admit, I didn't know what to expect when I started this journey, but after some of the other games in this video, my expectations were low. But this game surprised me with how enjoyable it is. After playing the travesty that was the PS2 Xena game, this was an amazing breath of fresh air. This game is superior in nearly every single way. There's more voice acting and actual gameplay in the first level of this game than the entirety of the PS2 game.
Cirrus! What's going on?
Xena, my friend, barbarians are destroying our village, and they're looking for...
Cirrus, someone is going to regret this.
The story for this game is all over the place, but it's basically just this.
Gabrielle, why is trouble always breathing down your neck?
And I don't need them now that I've got your friend Gabrielle.
Let me go! Look out!
Along the way, you'll meet with characters that fans of the show will recognize. And to this day, I still have no idea what Ares is talking about.
Ares? If you have anything to do with this, I swear I'll...
The question is, if you try to fail and succeed, which have you done? You'll have to start trying a little harder, unless you want to succeed at failure.
What? But the gameplay in this is what makes it, in my opinion, one of, if not the best, of all of the Xena games. This is a 3D beat-em-up adventure game with some light platforming and puzzle solving. Even though this is PS1, when you're in the zone, sometimes the combat is actually reminiscent of the Arkham trilogy, making you feel like the hardcore warlord chick that Xena is. Outside of swinging your sword and kicking wildly, you can also throw the chakram for a devastating ranged blow. The chakram is also used for puzzle solving too, making it a super useful item. Throughout the stages, you'll sometimes find optional pickups that allow you to add elemental properties to your attacks or go invulnerable for a limited amount of time. You can also find damage upgrades for your weapon, and sometimes find special one-time use items, like a homing chakram, that really help turn the tide in battle. Overall, this game knows what it wants to do, and does it well without overstaying its welcome. You can complete this whole game on a first run-through in under 2.5 hours. The only part of this game I really had any complaints about were a few sections in the underworld. Immediately, this boss pinned me, and there was nothing I could do about it. And unlike the Xena game that came on the PlayStation 2 later, this game actually kept the cheese of the show, and that made it really endearing. It's not just a good Xena game, this is a good game. You should check it out.
They gave me nothing to eat, nothing to drink, and the smell of those black vipers would make a barbarian sick.
Speaking of food, I'm hungry. Sacred black vipers. I hear these things taste like chicken. Not bad. If you can get around the smell.
Now that's disgusting.
Up next, we have Xena Warrior Princess for the Game Boy Color. When booting up this game, I was immediately reminded of the original Legend of Zelda for the NES. However, instead of an old man saying, "It's dangerous to go alone, take this," you have an old man telling you that it's dangerous and that he thinks your sword is in bear's territory. Once he's through talking, you set off on your grand adventure. Now, I'm not sure if this was intentional or not, but this game has a lot of similarities to multiple Zelda games. Much like Link's Awakening on the Game Boy, this game takes place within a dream, and your goal is to beat the big bad and wake up. This game takes place in an overhead perspective most of the time, with some of the side sections being 2D platforming. Immediately, I noticed that Xena moves extremely quickly, and me, not being used to this kind of speed in this style of game, immediately drowned multiple times while trying to get to her sword. Once you get the sword though, the game opens up. Without going over every single plot point, this game is basically a series of fetch quests, while occasionally you find new items to progress. I don't know if maybe I was playing it wrong or if the game is just extremely bad at telling you what to do, but I was confused the majority of this game, and after nearly 2/3 of the way through, I had to resort to a walkthrough. I'm not proud of it. One of the most baffling decisions to me though, is that many times, important items are hidden in the strangest places where you usually find them on accident. At one point earlier in the game, you're told that a pair of powerful gloves is hidden in the forest. After searching for what seemed like forever in the forest, I found them accidentally while attacking a rabbit. They were hidden under a tree that looks like the scenery trees that you really can't interact with. Another astonishing design choice that I found, on accident again, was that Xena's signature chakram was hidden behind what looked to be scenery. This is a completely optional find, but it's a super important item, and I don't see how you could really play the game without it. It's almost mandatory for some of the boss fights. Now, I may be completely off on this, but I feel like they were probably close to finalizing this game, and then Nintendo dropped both The Legend of Zelda Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of Ages 2 months before the Xena release. The inventory screens and progression are similar, you collect the container of hearts instead of a heart container, and there are lots of other similarities. But Xena did not pull it off as cleanly as the 2 Zelda games did. To kinda hammer this possibility in, the 2 Zelda games had a special feature that allowed you to connect both games together via Game Boy Link cable at a certain point in the game, and access extra content in both games. This feature was copied in the Xena game by allowing you to connect to Hercules, the Legendary Journey, to access content in both games. In the Xena game, it allows you to play as Hercules, and in the Hercules game, it allows you to play as Xena. While playing as the different characters, you can access secret areas within each game. This is a cool feature, but again, this had the unfortunate release date of dropping after the Zelda games, which are both amazing by the way. And I hate to say it, but if you want a good action-adventure game on the Game Boy Color, play those instead. Outside of novelty, this one's not worth playing today. In April of 1988, there was a text-based role-playing adventure game produced by Simutronics called Hercules and Xena: Alliance of Heroes. Unfortunately, they gave up their license to the Hercules and Xena characters in 2003 and simply renamed their game to Alliance of Heroes. I found very little information on this game, but I thought I'd try to play it anyways and roleplay as Xena. So I start the game. Immediately, I'm given the option to choose a name or have a name suggested. I name my character Xena. This isn't allowed, and I'm not sure if it has to do with the licensing or if someone already has that name. So I have the game suggest some names to me. What the heck are these names? I don't like any of them, so I default to one of the old names I used on my characters in MMOs back when I was in high school, and named myself Somric. At this point, I was just excited to be getting into the game and forgot about role-playing as Xena, so I chose male as my gender and went extremely wild with it and chose human as my race. The game then asked me what I wanted my features to be. Because this is a text-based game and I really don't care what my character looks like because I'm not going to see him anyway, I let the game choose for me. So Somric has an oval face, close-set hazeled eyes, a small nose, his honey hair is short and thick, he has wrinkled skin and a plump build. If that's not a hero, I don't know who is. So of course I keep those features, and then had to choose where in this fictional world Somric had to begin. But the game only gave me one option, so the crossing it is. It was at this point I was ready to enter the world of Elanthea. I was super excited to begin my journey as the wrinkly, portly Somric. Things were looking promising until I was hit with this. A free-to-play holding room. As a new free-to-play account, you are currently restricted from playing the game. When this restriction is lifted, you'll be able to type leave. There's currently no ETA for the ending of this restriction, but you may log out and try again later. Okay, so I'm gonna type leave. 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 Dang it. And that was that, unfortunately. As of the production of this video, I am still in the free-to-play holding room and unable to play the game. I can only imagine what it would have been like. And that brings us to the Xena Multipath Adventures. These are probably the most unique of all the Xena video games, as these were released on CD-ROM and DVD. Yes, these games were playable on your DVD player. Back in the early 2000s, there was a series of choose-your-own adventure style games published under the Multipath Adventures brand of games. These titles included Superman, Ace Ventura, Kiss, and of course, why we're here, Xena Warrior Princess. They released two Xena games, Girls Just Want to Have Fun and Death in Chains. Each game was based on an episode of the TV show with the same title respectively. I was able to get the Death in Chains CD-ROM working on my modern PC with only a few graphical hiccups, but my disc for Girls Just Want to Have Fun was corrupt, so I had to take my Xena journey to eBay. On eBay, I found a copy of a DVD. Much like the TV show, these games were filled with charming bad voice acting, cheesy dialogue, and those early 2000s 3D graphical jank. And I mean all of this as a compliment. I don't know what happened to the Multipath Adventure line of games, but, in my opinion, they were ahead of their time. They were doing what Telltale eventually did with games such as The Walking Dead, Batman, and Wolf Among Us. As you can imagine, being played on a DVD player, your options are extremely limited. Gameplay is simply watching a scene unfold and then making some kind of decision to help the story progress. I played both of these before watching the respective episodes that these games are based on, and I think that was probably the best way to play. They play really close to the episode script, and any major deviation usually leads to a bad ending. However, the first ending I got in Death in Chains I thought was a really cool ending. In Death in Chains, Lady Death is being held hostage by Sisyphus until her candle burns out. If her candle burns out, she's erased from existence. This would make everyone immortal, as Death could no longer claim lives. Hades asks Xena for help, as Death is his sister, and he knows that ultimately everyone being immortal is bad for humanity. I don't know where I messed up along the way, but I ended up reaching Lady Death too late, and had what I thought was a really cool ending. After Lady Death fades from existence and Xena and Gabrielle are coming to terms with failing, Hades appears and tells Xena that she must now take up the responsibility and be Lady Death herself. Xena? As Lady Death? That's freaking hardcore. You may notice that all of the footage I've shown so far is from the CD-ROM version of Death in Chains. Oddly enough, it is extremely difficult to record footage of a DVD in the year 2024 when all you have to play a DVD on is an Xbox and an old laptop. There are copyright rules that keep the Blu-ray app on Xbox from playing through a capture card. I didn't have the equipment necessary to get any footage other than this.
Take that, Fido!
Whoa! I didn't know they could do that. Weird.
And that does it. That was every single Xena game I could find in existence. While these games may not have left an impact on pop culture as much as the TV show did, there are still echoes of Xena in today's gaming landscape, with the character showing up in games like Broforce and Raid Shadow Legends. Ugh. And she's even been teased in Mortal Kombat 1, which I think would be a really cool addition. But so maybe we'll see her in there next year. Who knows? If you've made it this far into the video, thanks for watching. If you like what we do here on this channel, please like and subscribe, and join in the conversation in the comments below. It really helps. And if you'd like to check out Robbie's Retroland channel, there's a link in the description below. That's all I've got for you this time. See you all in the next video.